let's look at how to calculate another type of mean. We're going to look at the overall or the weighted mean. Up to this point, when we've been calculating means, we've had a list of numbers, we've added them all up and divided by the number of numbers that we had. But suppose that we've got not just one of each number in our list, but we have several, or perhaps we just have a fraction of that number. So let's figure out what I'm talking about here, what I mean. Okay, I want to start off with a story. Now, when my kids were little, we would often have stories about three bears, and here we have Ugly. He's the little bear. We have Oliver, and we have Beep Beep, who's much larger than the others. Well, these bears, sometimes before the kids would go to bed, they would get into their bearmobile and head off for some adventure. One night, the three bears got into their bearmobile. They headed down the stairs, out the door, and towards the bakery. They went into the bakery. They snuck into the bakery, turned on the lights, and they decided to have a snack. Now, it turns out that Ugly, who's the smallest bear, he had 5 cookies, but they were pretty small. They only weighed about 10 grams each. Oliver, who's somewhat larger, he also tends to be a little bit better behaved, perhaps a little bit wiser. He had 2 cookies, and the average weight was 15. And then Beep Beep, who kind of lives for the moment, had 12 cookies, and the average weight of the cookies were 100 grams each. He looked for the biggest cookies that he could find, and he ate as many as he could. Now, the question is, what was the average weight of the cookies eaten by the 3 bears? So you look at this, and we've got 10 grams, 15 grams, 100 grams. We can't just take the average of those 3 numbers because we've got different numbers of each one. So how are we going to do this? Well, we could write out 10 5 times, and 15 2 times, and 100 12 times, have a very long list, and do the average that way. But let's look at better ways of doing that. Now, when we use the overall or the weighted mean or the overall or weighted score, we can think through what are we actually going to do rather than writing down everything a certain amount, or if they're not whole numbers, what can we do? So let's say that we have a bunch of averages or scores or weights of cookies for several groups, K. So K is the number of groups of cookies. So in our group, we have Ugly's cookies, we have Oliver's cookies, and we have Beep Beep's cookies, and we have K groups, K sets of cookies. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the average weight of each group of cookie going from I, that's going to be the counter going from 1 through K. And we're going to find the overall average if we know how to weight each group, which is going to be this N, the weight or the number of cookies. So these weights can be the number of people, the number of cookies, the number of items, or they can be fractions. Maybe we want to do percentages so they all add up to 100%, as we'll see in some examples. So the overall average, or the overall score, is going to be how many we ever have of the first times the first cookie's average, plus the same thing for the second, all the way up through our K groups. And then we're going to divide by the total number in the K groups. We're going to add up all the different N's. Now, this is a kind of a big formula, but let's look to see how it works. And we're going to look and see how we can do it in Excel in a couple ways. So let me bring over the Excel spreadsheet here. And what we have here is, so we've got the 3 bears, our 3 groups. We've got Ugly's cookies, and the number and the weight of cookies. We've got Oliver's cookies and their weight, and Beep Beep's. So using that big long formula with the I's and the K's that we just looked at, we start off with Ugly's cookies. So and then we've got Oliver's cookies, and we're going to take, and then Beep Beep's cookies. And we're going to take the number of cookies times the weight, multiply them together, add them all together, and then we're going to divide by the number of Ugly's cookies, the number of Oliver's cookies, and the number of Beep Beep's cookies. So if we were to do this manually, we would do equal, and then open parentheses for the numerator, the top of the fraction, and we could do C4. That's going to be Ugly's numbers of cookies times D4, and so there we've got the weight of Ugly's cookies, plus C5 for Oliver's number of cookies, times D5, his average weight, and then we can add in Beep Beep's, which is going to be C6 times D6, and then we're going to close the parentheses, that's the numerator, divide by the number for each bear's cookies, that's going to be C4 plus C5 plus C6, close parentheses, and I press enter, and we get an average of 67.36 grams. Now let's get rid of all those decimal points. That's too many. Let's go to the number format. So the average weight is 67.37 grams. So we see that it's a lot closer to the average weight of Beep Beep's cookie than it is to either Ugly or Oliver's, and that's because Beep Beep ate so many cookies. Now, that's kind of a pain to write that formula all the way out, especially if there were more. So Excel has given us gives us a special command called the sum product. So what we're basically doing is we're taking the sum, which means adding things together, of a bunch of products, and a product is two numbers multiplied by each other. And so we're going to use the command equals sum product. And what we do is we're going to take this row, it's called an array, and then put a comma and put in this array. This column is the first array. This column is the second array. And we're only going to have 3 here, but we could have 100 in there. It wouldn't matter. Excel would say that's fine. And then that sum product will be the numerator. And then for the denominator, we'll add up all of those there. So the sum product going from C4 to C6 is our first array, and then we're going to go to D4 D6. That's our second array, and that's going to give us 5 times 10 plus 2 times 15 plus 12 times 100. Now, if we had 100, you would really see the value of this command, so we didn't have to write everything out. So let's close parentheses, and that's the numerator of this. Now for the denominator, we want the total of the number of cookies. So we're going to use sum for C4 through C6. We're going to add up all the number of cookies that way. So we're going to put sum, sum, open parentheses, C4 C6, and close parentheses. And now we press enter, and we get 67.37. Let's change this to number format. We get the same answer, but we've had an Excel formula using sum product for the numerator and sum for the denominator.